Hello and welcome to this virtual field trip to the Liberty Bell. Let's play two truths and a lie. I'm going to tell you two things that are true about the Liberty Bell and one thing that's not. At the end of this video, you'll be able to find out which is which. Fact number one: the Liberty Bell was cracked when it was moved and hidden during the Revolutionary War, and that giant crack in it is the damage that remains. Fact number two: 500,000 school children brought the Liberty Bell to San Francisco, California in 1915. Fact number three: it wasn't always known as the Liberty Bell, but originally was called the State House Bell. So hang around to the end of the video to find out which ones are true and which is the lie. The State House Bell, as it was originally known, was made in Philadelphia by Pass and Stowe. It was cast by them from the original bell that was ordered from London. But when the bell arrived from London and they did a test ring, it got damaged. So Pass and Stowe recast it into the bell that we know as the Liberty Bell today. As the State House Bell, it didn't have, a particularly interesting or important job. It just rang to let the lawmakers know that it was time to come to work in the Capitol. During the Revolutionary War, the State House Bell was moved and hidden in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Now, you might be wondering, why would they move it? It wasn't known as the Liberty Bell at that time. You've already said it wasn't a particularly important bell, so why does it matter that they moved it? Well, even though it didn't have symbolic and patriotic meaning at the time, it still had a financial meaning. And that is because the bell is made of brass. And so they didn't want to leave it behind where the British could get it, melt it down, and cast it into something else, like a cannon to be used against the American colonists during the war. So they took it and they moved it to Allentown, Pennsylvania, where it hid out during the Revolutionary War to keep it safe. In 1828, they decided to get a new State House bell, and what we now know as the Liberty Bell was moved into storage on the third floor. But at this time, it's still not known as the Liberty Bell. It was just the old State House bell, and why not just move it and put it into storage? But we're coming up very soon to when the Liberty Bell becomes a really important feature in our history and becomes the symbol of liberty that we all know of it today. This happens in the 1830s. Now, inscribed on the bell that Pass and Stowe cast back in 1753, it says, "Proclaim liberty throughout the land unto all the inhabitants thereof." And so, with this message on the bell, it became a symbol of freedom. Now, in the 1830s, who wasn't free? That's right, enslaved people. And so, abolitionists took up this mantle, this quote on this bell, as a symbol for why it was important that we begin to embrace all of the Declaration of Independence, all of the freedom and liberty that was promised for everyone, that everyone had these rights, that everyone deserved to be free. And so, using the Liberty Bell, they put it out into a pamphlet called the Anti Slavery Record. And it is there that it is first called the Liberty Bell. Although that name doesn't still pick up traction within the main body of the country until a little bit later. By the 1840s, it is starting to be known as the Liberty Bell, and it is a symbol for abolition. We make it all the way through the Civil War. Enslaved people are freed by 1865, and we move through a period in our history of Reconstruction. But the bell isn't finished, its story isn't done. Now, by this time, the bell has never been past St. Louis. It has been moved around from place to place, but it's never gone further than St. Louis and therefore kind of not much further than the Mississippi River. Well, there are some school children in San Francisco who did not think that this was fair, that they, as students of the United States of America, should not be able to see the Liberty Bell. So 500,000 of them petitioned the government to have it brought out for the Panama Pacific International Exposition in 1915. Now, the bell was placed on a railway in an open car, and it made its way first along a northern route out to San Francisco. And when it arrived, no one wanted to admit that anything had happened to it. They promised everyone it would be perfectly safe on the rail car that they had built. Well, it may not have been entirely true, and so they began to look for a safer way to make its way back. And so it took a southern route all the way back to Philadelphia. Now you might be thinking to yourself, aha, that must be when the damage happened and the crack in the bell. No. The bell was found out to be cracked in 1846. It had a thin hairline fracture, and so it was decided to be repaired by a method called drilling at that time, which means to make the crack wider. So the large crack in the Liberty Bell itself is not the damage, it's actually the repair. When they tested the bell again and put it back into service, unfortunately, that thin hairline crack continued to extend, and that silenced the bell forever. Now, that doesn't mean that it was never struck again, and it was during World War I. This was a time when people decided to use it again to proclaim liberty. Other groups are also using it during this time to proclaim liberty. The women's voting rights movement has claimed it and also made their own women's Liberty Bell. And because we're at this time in the United States in the 1920s in an era of Jim Crow laws, which are the ones that supposedly said that Black people were separate but equal, when in reality, they were being lynched, they were being attacked, they were being discriminated against, people were losing their voting rights, there were poll taxes, all of these various things, that in the end, they also used the Liberty Bell as a symbol for the civil rights movement that we see begin to grip the country from the 1920s, but more so and significantly in the 1950s on through till today. So the Liberty Bell now has a ton of meaning to everyone, but we're never to hear it ring again? Well, we're never going to be able to hear again its ring on its own clapper, but using computers, they have figured out a way to recreate what the bell would have sounded like ringing on its own clapper without the damage. You can listen to it here. So in 2003, the Liberty Bell moves to its current location near Independence Hall. You can go into a museum and learn about the history of the Liberty Bell, and then you can see the Liberty Bell itself. Now, even though in 1915 everyone was allowed to touch the Liberty Bell during its long journey from Philadelphia to San Francisco and back, that is not the case anymore. Absolutely no touchy. But you can touch a replica of the Liberty Bell's inscription, and you can learn even more about it. And you can get close to it on the other side of the ropes and have a look at this bell. Let's refresh and find out which ones were true and which was the lie. So, the two truths that I shared with you is that yes, indeed, 500,000 students brought the Liberty Bell out to San Francisco through their petition of the government. It was also true that it was not always known as the Liberty Bell. It was originally known as the State House Bell and was a pretty average bell until it became a symbol of freedom in the 1840s. The thing that was not true is that that giant crack is damaged. The giant crack in the bell is actually the repair of a thin hairline crack that happens we don't know when. But it did end up causing so much damage the bell cannot be rung. So that's a little bit for you about the Liberty Bell in Pennsylvania. I hope that you've enjoyed this virtual field trip.